What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today. Later on this week, we are seeing a potentially historic snowstorm that will be impacting parts of the Midwest and even as far south as areas like Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia in the deep south of the United States. We're also looking at an extreme cold outbreak that will be following that and even going on as this system is developing and moving through much of the U.S. So we have a lot to discuss with you moving on. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it right here. All right, starting off, we're going to go ahead and talk about the snow system first, then we're going to get to our Arctic temperatures. Here's what we have for you right here. A lot of the long-range models, the GEM-GDPS, the European GFS, have really been cranking out this scenario where we could be seeing a potentially historic snowstorm in parts of the deep south. So if you guys do not remember this, for those of you who are maybe impacted by this, and for those who probably have seen Alferia's documentary on this system as well, last year in January 2025, the deep south, especially along the Gulf Coast, saw a significant snowstorm, a significant snowstorm that brought up to 10 inches of snow for areas in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and other parts of the deep south. That is quite the system to be impacting that far to the south. It impacted a region where not a lot of people really get that much snow, and ultimately it led to a pretty historic impact for a lot of regions. Well, we could be seeing a lot more snowfall for some of those regions right there once again, so let's go ahead and get right into the GFS scenario right here. We're also going to be using the GEM-GDPS and the European as well, just to kind of cross-check and show you just how strong this signal, and it's not just a one-time thing, it's not just one model, it's all three of them, and they've only escalated as time has continued to go on. So let's go ahead and get to the GFS right here. We're going to go ahead and show you right here. We're going to go ahead and start around Wednesday, just to kind of give you some context of what's going on. So what we have developing right here is a Colorado low-pressure system that is starting to get its act together, although it is going to be pushing a bit further to the south right here. You do have a bit of a high-pressure system starting to develop as well. That is going to bring some pretty extreme cold for a lot of regions right here. And then as time goes on, you start seeing a low-pressure system starting to get its act together. Starting around Thursday going into Friday, you have a pretty significant high-pressure system. That's going to bring some pretty significant cold temperatures to a lot of the United States. We'll get more into that a little bit later. But taking a look at this right here, here's what we got for you, ladies and gentlemen. The snow starts to get organized and developed around Thursday night going into Friday. This is the GFS that we have for you right here across parts of Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and southern Illinois. It just only pushes further and further to the south. And as you can see this right here, we do have a high pressure system around 1048 millibars already in parts of Minnesota. That's only diving further to the south and pushing this further and further down, bringing heavy precipitation, bringing heavy snow, heavy mixed precipitation to Texas, to Arkansas, and far in the deep south. You're looking at freezing rain potential all the way down to Dallas, Shreveport, Jackson, Mississippi, that region right there. This is going to be a very significant snowstorm and winter storm for that matter. And once again, we're seeing some potentially very big impacts across much of the same regions that were impacted by that historic snowstorm from last year. So this is what we got for you right here. A lot of the snow remains concentrated in Mississippi, Alabama, those northern regions, especially around the Huntsville region, in Georgia, north of Atlanta, and in the Carolinas. The Carolinas could be in for a potential jackpot scenario if these models hold, and that is something that we're going to want to pay attention to. And then as we get to the weekend, so this is pretty much ramping up by Saturday, and then Saturday night, the system does start to wind down a bit and move out to sea over here. You do start seeing the snow exiting the Carolinas by Sunday afternoon, so that's what we are dealing with in that sector of it right here, and that is definitely something we're going to want to watch. This isn't just one run that's showing this. It's multiple runs on multiple models that are indicating that this could be going on. Here's what we have for the GEM-GDPS for you guys right here. Similar situation. So let's go ahead and get started by Thursday morning. We start seeing a system starting to get its act together across parts of the Colorado. You start seeing that low pressure system developing right about here. But as you can see, you're going to start seeing this big high pressure system coming down from Canada that's just going to drive this system further and further to the south as it starts to tap into some Gulf moisture and really starts to bring some heavy precipitation, and whether it is freezing rain or whether it is snow across parts of the deep south and a lot of these regions by Friday going into Saturday. Take a look at this. This is Saturday afternoon right here. So the timing is a little bit off between the European and GFS and GEM GDPS. I forgot to make that pretty clear. But ultimately, you do have this scenario that's really showing a lot of very heavy snowfall across much of the deep south, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, seeing mixed precipitation right here. And then potentially another round of this on the 26th of January, which is next week. But because the GM GDPS, I am taking that with more of a pinch of salt as of right now. But that's what we're dealing with here. Now with the European, what we're going to show you is what I think is kind of interesting. We're going to show you, because the European doesn't really have like what kind of precipitation it is on COD. It does on tropical tidbits, but I haven't really touched that in a little while. I might touch that as we get more data and take a look at it. But ultimately, here's what we got starting Thursday right here. Thursday, you have a little bit of precip. That's from a different system moving through parts of the deep south. And then as you start to see right here, across parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, you start seeing a lot of precipitation starting to develop. That's your snowfall. That's your freezing rain right here. Look at how heavy this precip starts to get. You can't really tell on this map that whether it's rain or snow or not, but you can tell this is very, very, very heavy precipitation. A lot of it is snow. A lot of it is freezing rain. A lot of it's just regular rain for like areas just along the coastline right here. But ultimately, my goodness, things really start to turn up across much of the deep south, and we're going to want to pay attention to see how things continue to go. Let's go ahead and show you our snow accumulation right here for the European, for that deep south system. We're also watching another system, another couple systems over here in the Midwest as well. We're looking at a potentially couple Alberta Clipper systems, but especially really ramping up the lake effect this week, starting on today, actually, moving through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then the big event really starts blowing up. When is this right here? This is Friday afternoon going into the evening, bringing some pretty significant snowfall, but it doesn't really start until Saturday when the big snow really starts to ramp up. Look at this right here. In the span of between 6 a.m. and 6 a.m. and noon across Texas and Oklahoma, you could see potentially up to 6 inches of snow. So about an inch of snowfall per hour as this system starts to move through a lot of the region right here, and potentially up to a foot of snow is possible for parts of southeastern Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and zoom into the southern Great Plains and first kind of break this down. Here's what the European is forecasting. I will say the European is a bit more aggressive with these snow amounts than other models like the GFS and the GEM, but we are going to keep an eye on them. But look at this. 8+ inches of snow for much of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth could potentially see 8 to 10 inches of snow. Is it going to be that much? I do not know. But the snow isn't the main thing I'm paying attention to. It's actually the freezing rain that we're going to want to watch out for. Unfortunately, the European doesn't have freezing rain accumulation on COD. The GFS does, so we can pull that up for you once we get to there. But my goodness, look at how things are ramping up across right here. Actually, we'll go ahead and zoom out to the Mid-Atlantic right here. Look at this. Right here. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest with some of this. I do think some of these snow accumulations right here are quite unrealistic. I mean, look at this. They're wanting Greensboro and Winston-Salem, North Carolina to get up to 18 inches of snow. I do think that Texas, Oklahoma, as well as the Carolinas, and maybe Virginia could see the jackpot of the snow totals. But what I don't like is the amount of snow they're forecasting. I think they're going way overboard with a lot of this right here, like 20 inches of snow in the Appalachian regions. I could definitely buy that, especially along the peaks, but is it going to spread through North Carolina? Unless you see a pretty big Arctic blast move through there, unless you start seeing a significant amount of precipitation across the entire state, I don't think that's going to be snowing that much. I think I think realistically up to a foot of snow is possible for these regions, but 20 inches, I think we're pushing it a little bit too much on that front, but we'll have to keep an eye on it, and we'll keep you updated on it here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. By the way, I've been doing shorts and Instagram reels covering this in a bit shorter length. Go check those out if you haven't already. But anyway, here's the GFS for you guys right here. GFS is definitely more conservative than the European by a pretty significant margin right here. GFS, yeah, definitely more conservative, but it's still bringing significant snowfall. Don't get me wrong. 7 to 9 inches of snow for parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, mainly keeping the snow out of Texas right here. That's going to mainly be freezing rain that we're going to want to pay attention to. South Carolina, Georgia, and southern North Carolina, especially along the Wilmington region, potentially up to 8 to 12 inches of snow is possible for you guys according to the GFS. But then again, it is also the GFS, and these are early returns, so please do take this with a pinch of sodium chloride. Here is the GM GDPS for you guys right here. The GM GDPS is definitely the most conservative model of the bunch, although it is kind of delayed with the amount of snow accumulation potential right here, mainly favoring that second system scenario, bringing all the snow. Is it realistic? No, at least for the second one. I will say, though, the first system bringing a few inches of snow definitely is on the conservative side compared to what I've seen with the impacts, as well as a few other models I've looked at prior to this. But that's what we're dealing with right here. Let's go ahead now and show you our freezing rain accumulation, and this is what I'm really concerned about according to based on what I'm seeing with the GFS and a few other things. Take a look at this. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Just because you're out of the snow doesn't mean you're not going to see a pretty big ice storm going on. Look at this. According to the GFS, we're seeing potentially up to 1.4 inches of ice for parts of Louisiana. Is that realistic? I don't know. But I do think especially at least a half an inch of ice widespread across a lot of these regions is very plausible, because you have a pretty significant inversion further up in the atmosphere that is going to favor that before temperatures drop right below right above the surface to allow for that freezing rain to get started. So that's definitely something we're going to want to pay attention to. This is going to down power lines. This is going to ice over roads. This is going to cause pretty hellish conditions if this model holds. Do I think this model is going to hold? I don't know. We'll have to pay attention to it. We'll keep you updated. But I just wanted to show you the freezing rain potential, because my goodness, I am not playing around with this. Look at this. Going as far east as Georgia and South Carolina, up to a half an inch of ice is possible for areas that are not going to be seeing any snowfall from this. So that is a very serious situation that you're going to want to pay attention to, and we'll continue to monitor it here. But we also need to monitor the ice-cold temperatures that are going to be with this system. Let's go ahead and start, because remember that high-pressure system I was talking to you about that was going to be driving the system further down to the south? Well, what we're going to be ultimately seeing here with this is that high-pressure system is going to be bringing some extreme cold across much of the United States. I'd say the eastern two-thirds or even three-quarters of the U.S. are going to be seeing Arctic cold temperatures. You're going to want to pay attention to that, and we're going to go ahead and show you those temps. So here's the European forecast for this right here. The European has a pretty big Arctic blast moving through much of the Midwest, parts of especially Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, but it really starts to dip down into the deep south as the week goes on. Look at this by Tuesday morning right here. Temperatures below freezing as far south as the Georgia-Florida border right here. And then as this starts to recede a little bit, but then you have another Arctic blast system that's going to be moving through parts of the United States starting on Thursday going into Friday. That's when this big snow system is going to be developing. Look at this. First of all, this is Friday morning. Look at that temperature gradient. Oklahoma City, 33 degrees. What are we seeing in Omaha, Nebraska? -5. That is a tight temperature gradient, and that is a significant high pressure system moving through temperatures as low as -30 in parts of Minnesota and North Dakota. That is crazy. Now, do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. I need to see more data and information, but look at this in the next day. Look at how far south this cold air goes. This is eerily similar to what we saw with the Texas snowstorm in 2021. We're going to want to watch that, and we're going to want to see how that pans out. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, the temperature drops down to about 20 degrees as far south as San Angelo, as far south as Dallas as well. My goodness, things are really starting to ramp up right here. This setup is eerily similar to that 2021 system. The only difference is it's not going to be moving through much of the Midwest. It's going to be pushing further and further to the south because of how concentrated this high pressure system is. And then as we get to Saturday or Sunday morning right here, the temperatures just get colder and colder and colder across much of the U.S. Single digits are possible for parts of Oklahoma and Texas. In the Carolinas, you're looking at temperatures in the teens. If you're in Georgia and South Carolina, temperatures in the 20s are likely right here. And then as time goes on, going into Monday right here, these temperatures just persist more and more and more, and it's part of a pattern that's going to continue to bring some pretty significant cold air across much of the United States. Matter of fact, we have a tweet I want to go ahead and pull up right here. This is what we got. It turns out what I've been saying about extreme cold coming over the next 2 weeks was underestimating the intensity and longevity. Worse, the last days of January will be brutal for the Midwest to the Great Lakes to the Northeast, and that's what he's showing right here. And these are your temperature anomalies. These are significantly colder temperatures than average across much of the eastern two-thirds of the United States right here. It is going to be very, very cold for the next after this week right here. It's already going to be really cold now, but it's going to be extra cold moving on, and we're going to want to pay very close attention to those temperatures. Frostbite is definitely something that you're going to want to take very seriously with this. And then as we go ahead and go towards the last day of January, now I will say some of this is a little unrealistic in Fantasyland. For example, -7 in North Carolina. I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll have to see how this pans out. But the European is really forecasting some extreme cold moving through a lot of these regions right here. That also, seeing that trough and ridge setup right here, definitely could potentially produce some more snow systems as well. Just to kind of take a quick at the long range forecast for, right here. Definitely looking at some potential snow systems, mainly concentrated to be Alberta Clippers, as kind of between the high pressure systems. GFS looking at the long range forecast for that as well, mainly concentrated to Alberta Clipper systems after this, but you're going to want to watch this and you're going to want to take this very, very seriously regardless, because one thing I will say is with this snow system impacting the deep south, we're going to be seeing a 1-2 punch across the United States. For those that are further up to the north that aren't going to see the snow, you're going to get impacted by extreme Arctic cold. For those tuning into the south, if you are watching this and potentially looking at this, not only are you going to be seeing snow or freezing rain, you could be seeing some pretty significant Arctic cold that's going to be moving through this as well. It's kind of a worst case scenario type situation, regardless of what impacts you're going to get. So this is all stuff we're going to want to watch. This is all stuff we're going to want to pay attention to, and this is stuff we're going to continue to keep you updated on here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But yes, I am back to producing long-form content. It took a pretty significant amount of model runs as well as a lot of some historic situations for me to come back to doing long-form content. It's been about a month since I did this last, at least in this format. I've made documentaries and all that stuff, but now I'm back, at least for this week, doing long-form content, but I have been transitioning to short-form content on my YouTube Shorts, as well as on Instagram as well, so be sure you check those out. Follow me on Instagram. The link to that will be in the description down below for you to see those reels, as well as kind of see a few more funny things as well in my stories. I've been pretty active on there as we've seen more things come in. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you would like to help out, hang out, or ask us some questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that will be in the end screen. We'd like some new members, and we'd like some more insights. And if you are potentially concerned about the impacts of the significant snow system or the Arctic cold, we'd be happy to take some questions. We'd be happy to answer them, and we'd be happy to have some people come and help us out with the behind the scenes of Pat's Path Predictor videos. But with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.